The twin suns of Xerion Prime cast long crimson shadows through the crystalline forest as Kestra moved with predatory grace between the luminescent trees. Her powerful frame, standing nearly 8 feet tall, was perfectly adapted for the hunt. Lean muscle beneath midnight blue skin, razor-sharp claws that could extend at will, and eyes that could track the smallest movement across vast distances. She was Vorthak, bred for millennia to be the apex predator of a dozen worlds. Today's quarry was special. Humans were rare on Xerion Prime. Their scouts occasionally crash landing on this hostile world only to become delicacies for her kind. The Vorthak considered human flesh the ultimate prize, not just for its taste, but for the intellectual satisfaction of outwitting truly sentient prey. It was both sustenance and sport, a tradition that had elevated their species to galactic dominance. Her quarry's tracks led through the whispering ruins, ancient structures that predated both their civilizations. The human had chosen his hiding place well. The ruins' energy signatures would mask his bio readings from most scanners. But Kestra hunted the old way, with instinct and skill honed through countless successful hunts. She found him in the central chamber, sitting calmly beneath a canopy of bioluminescent crystals that cast dancing patterns of blue and gold across the weathered stone walls. He wasn't cowering in some dark corner as she'd expected. Instead, the human, a male with auburn hair and intelligent green eyes, sat cross-legged, apparently admiring the ancient artwork carved into the walls. "Magnificent craftsmanship," he said without turning around, his voice carrying a slight accent she couldn't place. Whoever built this understood the relationship between form and function. The crystal placement isn't random. It's designed to amplify the chamber's natural acoustics. Kestra paused, her claws partially extended, confusion flickering across her features. In 3 centuries of hunting, no prey had ever begun a conversation about architecture. "You know I'm here," she stated, her voice a low rumble that usually sent lesser beings fleeing in terror. Of course. The human finally turned to face her, and she was struck by the complete absence of fear in his expression. "I'm Finn, by the way. I've been waiting to meet one of your kind under less desperate circumstances than combat. I am Kestra of the 3rd Hunting Circle," she replied automatically, then caught herself. Why was she introducing herself to food? "You should be begging for your life, not making small talk." Finn smiled, and the expression transformed his entire face. "Would begging change your mind? I've studied Vorthak culture during my time as a xenoanthropologist. Your kind values strength and intelligence. Pleading would only confirm your assessment of humans as weak prey." Something stirred in Kestra's chest, an unfamiliar sensation that made her claws retract involuntarily. "You study us?" "Among other species. Your civilization is fascinating. The way you've maintained such complex social hierarchies while expanding across multiple star systems. Most predator species plateau culturally, but the Vorthak continued evolving. I've always wondered about the individual behind the hunter." Kestra found herself stepping closer, drawn by curiosity rather than hunting instinct. "There is no individual. We are what we are bred to be." "Are you?" Finn's eyes met hers directly, without the usual flinching she expected. "Because right now, I see someone capable of conversation, of curiosity. That suggests there's more to you than just predatory programming." The observation hit her like a physical blow. In her structured society, questioning one's nature was forbidden. It implied weakness, deviation from perfection. Yet here was her intended prey, seeing something in her that she'd never dared acknowledge. "You're trying to confuse me," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I'm trying to understand you," Finn replied simply. "Before this ends, one way or another." The bioluminescent crystals pulsed gently overhead as Kestra settled onto the stone floor across from Finn, her massive frame surprisingly graceful despite her size. She told herself she was simply prolonging the hunt, savoring the anticipation as her kind were taught to do. Yet something deeper kept her claws sheathed and her predatory instincts at bay. "Tell me about your world," Finn said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Not the military reports or diplomatic briefings. What's it actually like to grow up Vorthak? Kestra's amber eyes narrowed. Why would prey care about predator culture? Because understanding changes everything. Fear comes from the unknown. But right now, sitting here with you, I'm not afraid, I'm curious. The admission sent another strange flutter through Kestra's chest. She'd been trained to recognize deception, manipulation tactics her prey might use. But Finn's scent carried no markers of fear or falsehood, only an almost intoxicating blend of excitement and authentic interest. We are born into hunting pods, she found herself saying, raised communally until we're old enough to prove ourselves. Emotion is discouraged. It clouds judgment, weakens resolve. But you feel them anyway, Finn observed. I can see it in your eyes when you think I'm not looking. There's loneliness there, isn't there? Kestra's hand moved unconsciously to her throat, where ritual scars marked her hunting achievements. No one had ever mentioned loneliness to her before. The concept itself was considered a deficiency in Vorthak society. Loneliness is weakness, she recited, but the words felt hollow. Or maybe it's just being alive. Finn countered. On Earth we have a saying, no man is an island. We're social creatures. Even apex predators in nature often form bonds. As the hours passed, their conversation meandered through philosophy, history, and personal experiences. Finn spoke of Earth's vast oceans and diverse cultures, painting pictures with words that made Kestra see her own world through new eyes. She found herself sharing memories she'd never voiced, the beauty of Vorthak's aurora-painted skies, the ancient songs her pod mother hummed when she thought no one was listening. When Xerion's twin moons rose, casting silver light through the crystal formations, the atmosphere in the ruins shifted subtly. The harsh edges of their predator-prey dynamic had softened into something neither could quite name. I should kill you now, Kestra said quietly, though she made no move to do so. Every moment I delay is a violation of my purpose. And yet here, we are, Finn replied, his voice equally soft. Two beings from different worlds sharing stories like old friends. We are not friends, Kestra protested, but the conviction had drained from her voice. Finn studied her face in the moonlight, noting how the silver illumination softened her harsh features. What are we then? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to explore. Kestra felt something stirring in her that had nothing to do with hunger. At least, not the kind of hunger she understood. When Finn's hand moved slightly closer to hers on the stone floor, she didn't pull away. In my culture, she said slowly, we have a concept called soul hunting. It's when a warrior becomes so fascinated by their prey that they lose themselves in the pursuit. It's considered a form of madness. Maybe it's not madness, Finn suggested. Maybe it's recognition. Two souls recognizing something in each other that transcends programming or prejudice. Their eyes met and held, and Kestra felt her carefully, constructed world tilting on its axis. She leaned forward slightly, drawn by an impulse she couldn't name. Finn's breathing quickened, but not with fear, with anticipation of an entirely different kind. This is forbidden, she whispered. So is sitting here talking instead of completing your hunt, Finn pointed out. We've already crossed several lines. The space between them seemed to crackle with electricity. Kestra's enhanced senses picked up the subtle changes in Finn's scent, attraction, desire, emotions that should have been impossible between predator and prey. Yet her own body was responding in kind, warmth pooling in places that had nothing to do with the hunt. I don't understand what's happening to me, she admitted, vulnerability creeping into her voice. Neither do I, Finn said, reaching out slowly, until his fingertips brushed hers. But maybe we don't need to understand it. Maybe we just need to feel it. The contact sent electricity racing up Kestra's arm, and for the first time in her life she experienced something beyond the thrill of the hunt. She experienced desire for connection rather than conquest. 3 days had passed since Kestra first cornered Finn in the ruins, and the hunter had become the captivated. She told herself she was studying him, learning his weaknesses, but her own defenses crumbled a little more with each shared glance. and whispered conversation. Finn had proven surprisingly resourceful, using his knowledge of xenobiology to identify edible plants and locate clean water sources within the ruins' vicinity. They'd established an unspoken routine. She would hunt small game with her superior speed and strength, while he gathered vegetation and maintained their shelter. It was a partnership that defied every instinct of her species. "Your wounds are healing remarkably fast," Finn observed as he examined a cut on Kestra's arm from their previous day's foraging expedition. His touch was gentle, clinical, but she felt her skin burning beneath his fingers. "Vorthak physiology is efficient," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "We heal quickly to minimize vulnerability during extended hunts. Everything about your species is designed for survival," he mused, his fingers tracing the edge of the nearly closed wound. "But what about living? Not just surviving, actually living?" The question struck her like lightning. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering immediately, Finn's hands moved to frame her face, his thumbs gently stroking the high ridges of her cheekbones. "When did you last do something just because it brought you joy? Not because it served a purpose or fulfilled a function, but because it made you feel alive?" Kestra's breath caught. No one had ever touched her with such tenderness. Vorthak interactions were either dominance displays or utilitarian necessity. I don't understand the question." "Then let me show you," Finn whispered, leaning closer, until she could feel his breath against her lips. The kiss was soft, exploratory, nothing like the violent claiming rituals of her own species. Kestra froze for a moment, overwhelmed by sensations she had no framework to process. Then instinct of a different kind took over, and she kissed him back with growing passion. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Kestra's amber eyes were wide with wonder and confusion. "That's what I mean by living," Finn said softly. "Connection without conquest. Pleasure without purpose beyond the moment itself." That night, as they lay beneath the star-filled sky of Zerion Prime, their relationship crossed its final boundary. Kestra's powerful form trembled as Finn explored her body with reverent hands, mapping the landscape of her differences, the subtle scales along her spine, the sensitive spots where her neck met her shoulders, the way her breathing changed when he touched her just so. "You're beautiful," he whispered against her throat, and she nearly wept at the word. Beauty was not a concept applied to Vorthak hunters. They were effective, efficient, deadly, but never beautiful. Their lovemaking was a study in contrasts, his human gentleness teaching her that strength could be expressed through tenderness, her alien power showing him that passion could be both fierce and caring. They moved together with an intensity that transcended species, two beings discovering that connection could be more intoxicating than any hunt. In the aftermath, as they held each other in the crystal-lit chamber, Kestra experienced something she'd never felt before: complete contentment. Not the satisfaction of a successful kill, but the deep peace of being truly known and accepted. "My people would call this corruption," she murmured against Finn's chest. "Mine would call it love," he replied, his arms tightening around her. The word hung in the air like a revelation. Love. A concept so foreign to Vorthak culture that they had no equivalent term in their language. Yet as Kestra felt Finn's heartbeat against her cheek, she knew that whatever this feeling was, it had fundamentally changed her. Their peaceful moment was shattered by the distant sound of hunting calls echoing through the forest. Kestra's head snapped up, her predatory instincts instantly alert. "They've found us," she said, rising gracefully to her feet. A full hunting pack by the sound of it. Finn stood beside her, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "Your people?" "Yes. And they won't understand what's happened here. To them I've been compromised, possibly infected by human influence." Her voice hardened with resolve. "They'll try to kill you and cleanse me through combat trials." "What do we do?" Kestra looked at him, this human who had shown her emotions she never knew existed, who had awakened something in her that felt more real than anything she'd experienced in 3 centuries of existence. The choice before her was clear: return to her old life and watch them destroy the being who had given her a new one, or fight her own kind to protect what they had found together. "We run," she said, "and if they catch us, I fight." "Against your own people?" Kestra's eyes blazed with fierce determination. "For you, for this, for whatever we've become." The hunting calls grew closer as Kestra led Finn through the labyrinthine passages beneath the ruins. Her superior knowledge of tracking meant she also knew how to avoid being tracked, but a full Vorthak hunting pack would be relentless. They had perhaps an hour before their pursuers closed the distance. "There's something you need to know," Kestra said as they moved swiftly through a narrow tunnel lit by phosphorescent moss. "The pack leader will be Thane Corvex. He trained me, and he'll see my protection of you as the ultimate betrayal." Finn's hand squeezed hers in the darkness. "Tell me about him." "Corvex is old-blood Vorthak, from the warrior clans that conquered our first dozen worlds. He believes in racial purity above all else. To him, any connection between our species is abomination." Kestra's voice carried pain. "He was like a father to me, before I understood what that word meant." They emerged from the tunnels into a hidden valley, its walls covered in the same bioluminescent crystals that had lit their first conversation. It was beautiful, serene, and would soon become a battleground. "I could surrender myself," Finn offered quietly. "End this before it starts." Kestra spun to face him, her eyes blazing. "Never. Do you understand what you've given me? For the first time in my life, I feel complete. I won't let them take that away." "But fighting your own people are no longer my people," she interrupted fiercely. "My people are anyone who can see beyond the accident of genetics to the truth underneath. My people are those who choose love over fear." The sound of approaching hunters echoed off the valley walls. 6 Vorthak warriors emerged from the tree line, their midnight blue forms moving with predatory precision. At their head was Corvex, ancient and scarred, his amber eyes cold with disappointment. "Kestra of the Third Circle," his voice boomed across the valley. "You have dishonored our kind." "I have found my kind," she replied, stepping protectively in front of Finn. "And he is worth more than all your hollow traditions." Corvex's expression twisted with disgust. "You speak of worth while protecting prey? You have been corrupted beyond redemption." "I have been awakened beyond your comprehension," Kestra shot back. "You see only predator and prey because you've forgotten we can be more." The pack began to spread out, surrounding them. Kestra's claws extended with metallic whispers, her body shifting into combat stance. Behind her, she heard Finn's breathing, quickened not with fear but with the desire to stand beside her. "Stay behind me," she murmured without turning around. "We face this together," he replied firmly. The first warrior charged, and Kestra met him with devastating precision. Her claws found the gaps in his natural armor, dropping him in seconds. But as she fought, more converged on her position. These were her former podmates, warriors she'd trained and hunted beside for decades. Each blow she struck carried the weight of severed bonds. Finn proved surprisingly capable, using his smaller size and agility to stay clear of the larger warriors, while harassing them with improvised weapons. When one of the hunters cornered him against the valley wall, Kestra's roar of rage echoed off the crystals as she abandoned her own fight to reach him. "Enough!" Corvex's command froze everyone in place. "I will end this madness myself." The old warrior approached slowly, his massive frame radiating lethal intent. "You were my greatest student, Kestra. I taught you everything you know about honor, duty, purpose. How can you throw it all away for this?" "Because everything you taught me was a lie," she replied, standing tall despite the blood seeping from multiple wounds. "You taught me that strength meant isolation, that connection was weakness. But the strongest thing I've ever done is choose to love him." "Love?" Corvex spat the word like poison. "You speak of weakness as if it were virtue." "No," Finn said, stepping up beside Kestra despite her protective gesture. "She speaks of courage. It takes courage to change, to grow beyond what you were programmed to be. Your way is the easy path. following instinct without question. Real strength is choosing your own purpose. Corvex's claws extended to their full length. Then you will die for your philosophical nonsense, human, and she will be cleansed through combat or death. The final battle was brutal and desperate. Corvex was stronger, more experienced, fueled by righteous fury. But Kestra fought with something he couldn't understand. The fierce protectiveness of someone defending not just a life, but a future she'd never dared dream possible. When her claws finally found their mark, piercing the old warrior's primary heart, his eyes widened with something that might have been understanding in his final moments. Perhaps, he whispered as he fell, strength takes many forms. The surviving pack members fled, carrying word of her betrayal to the greater hunting circles. Kestra and Finn were now outcasts from both their worlds, but as they held each other, in the crystal-lit valley, neither felt the weight of loss, only the lightness of freedom. No going back now, Finn said softly. No going back, Kestra agreed. Only forward, together. 6 months had passed since the battle in the Crystal Valley, and Kestra barely recognized the being she'd once been. The rigid hunter who had stalked Finn through the crimson forests had been replaced by someone capable of laughter, tenderness, and dreams beyond the next kill. They'd made their home in the Singing Caverns, a network of chambers deep in Zarian's unexplored wilderness where mineral formations created haunting melodies when the wind passed through them. Here, hidden from both Vorthak hunting parties and human military patrols, they'd built something unprecedented, a life together. The fruit trees are finally bearing, Finn announced, returning from their terraced garden with an armful of golden orbs. His body had adapted to Zarian's environment over the months, becoming leaner and more resilient, while Kestra had learned to channel her predatory instincts into protecting their sanctuary, rather than hunting sentience. And the communication array is picking up more signals, Kestra replied, looking up from the sophisticated equipment they'd cobbled together from salvage technology. 3 more mixed-species couples have made contact this week. What had begun as their private refuge was slowly becoming something larger. Word had spread through underground networks about the place where different species could coexist peacefully. Refugees arrived regularly, humans fleeing anti-alien sentiment on frontier worlds, Vorthak who questioned their society's rigid castes, and members of other species seeking acceptance for relationships their cultures condemned. Marcus and Vale arrived this morning, Kestra continued, referring to the latest arrivals, a human engineer and his Zeloni partner, whose crystalline biology had made their love affair scandalous on both their worlds. They're requesting permission to establish a workshop in the Eastern Chambers. Finn set down his harvest and moved behind Kestra, his arms encircling her powerful frame. Even after all these months, the simple intimacy of the gesture sent warmth racing through her veins. Remember when we thought we were the only ones crazy enough to cross species barriers? He murmured against her neck. We weren't crazy, she corrected, leaning back into his embrace. We were just the first to be brave enough. Their community now numbered 47 beings from 12 different species, all united by the revolutionary idea that love transcended biology. They'd established guidelines for coexistence, shared resources, and mutual protection. What had started as 2 outcasts hiding in caves had evolved into the foundation of something that could change galactic civilization. That evening, as they did every week, the community gathered in the Great Chamber for their council meeting. The bioluminescent crystals cast dancing patterns on the assembled faces, some scaled, some furred, some bearing features that defied easy categorization, but all animated by the same hope for acceptance. The Terran Colonial Authority has issued new edicts against genetic pollution, reported Zane, a human diplomat who'd fled after falling in love with a Kytheran healer. They're offering bounties for information leading to the capture of mixed couples. And the Vorthak Grand Council has declared our valley a contamination zone, added Vexar, a young hunter who'd arrived 3 months ago after refusing an order to execute a Rillan family. They're planning a cleansing operation. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly, but Kestra stood calmly, Her presence alone commanded attention. She'd become their unofficial leader not through force, but through the quiet authority of someone who'd sacrificed everything for principle. "Let them come," she said simply. "Both our old peoples are trapped in the past, defined by fear of difference. We represent the future, beings who choose connection over conflict, understanding over prejudice. But can we defend ourselves against organized military action?" asked Elena, a human xenobiologist whose relationship with her Vorthak partner had triggered the very edicts they now faced. "We don't need to fight them," Finn interjected, rising to stand beside Kestra. "We just need to survive long enough to grow. Every couple that finds happiness here proves our point. Every child born from mixed heritage expands the definition of possible." As if summoned by his words, little Arya toddled into the circle, the first child born in their community, daughter to human parents who'd adopted her after her original Kithaeron family was killed in a purge. Her dual heritage was visible in her violet eyes and the subtle iridescent patches on her skin. But more importantly, she represented hope incarnate. "She'll never know a world where love is limited by species," Kestra said softly, scooping the child into her arms. "None of the children born here will. That's our real victory. Not surviving the old world, but creating a new one." Later that night, as they lay together in their private chamber, Finn traced the ritual scars on Kestra's throat, marks of her former life that she'd chosen to keep as reminders of how far she'd traveled. "Any regrets?" he asked, a question that had become ritual between them. "Only that it took me 3 centuries to find you," she replied, then captured his lips in a kiss that still carried the fire of their first connection. Outside their chamber, the singing caverns filled with their haunting melodies, as if the planet itself were celebrating the love that had bloomed in its depths. And in chambers throughout their hidden sanctuary, beings from across the galaxy held each other close, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, living proof that the universe was vast enough for every form of love.